All right, all right. Hello, everyone. Dr. Flores here, filling in for Dr. Xiao Ojeda. Welcome to today's CAPRI series webinar. We're thrilled to have you here for a fantastic hour of learning and fun. Now, just before we dive in, there's a few friendly ground rules. Number one, keep your microphone muted to avoid any background noise and help everyone hear the speakers clearly. Number two, if you've got questions, drop them in the chat. We're going to tackle as many of them as we can during this webinar. Number three, this awesome session is being recorded for those who cannot join live. So by being here, you're giving us the big thumbs up to record. Slides, recording, and extra goodies are going to land in your August PD2Go newsletter. Let's go ahead and roll into August's professional development webinar, Unleashing Practical Learning, Boosting Teaching with Real-World Adventures, diving into hands-on activities, boosting insights, and snagging strategies to rock real-world experiences in your teaching. Meeting our guides for today's COE faculty rock stars, we've got Dr. Brittany Hill. She is an ed hero. She's an author. She's a community champ. She's all about lighting up success paths. We also have Dr. Alania Desjardins, pro in making dreams happen, from coaching to community support. Are you ready to level up your teaching game, everybody? All right, Dr. Hill, Dr. Alania, over to you.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction. We really appreciate that. I'm going to defer to my colleague right now, Dr. Hill, and she's going to kick us off on a great icebreaker. Thanks so much. And Dr. Hill, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elena. So as we all are different in our own ways, we are going to make sure that this presentation is a model of the expectations of what this particular workshop is fostered around. And so you want to make sure that you're constantly innovative and being involved into the learning environment. So the very first thing we're going to do, we're going to break the monotony and we're going to get to know each other with a very creative icebreaker. And so I want you at this time to look in the chat. And there's a link. It's a palette link. You're going to click that link. When you click that link, you're going to go to a different web page, and I'll share my screen here shortly so we all can see and view the responses. And so the question is, if you were a fruit or a vegetable, what would you be and why? So let us know what fruit, which vegetable, and why you chose that particular fruit or vegetable. And then I will read out loud and go through. And if you would like to unmute yourself and share out loud, you're free more to do so. So once you get to the screen, if you haven't already figured it out, there is a plus button at the very bottom, your bottom right-hand corner, and you click on that, and then you type in your response, whether you're a strawberry or a cucumber or whatever you want it is to describe yourself and why. I see some people are pondering. And so once you post your response, it will populate here. This is also a phenomenal innovative learning portal that you can utilize, whether it's a virtual setting or in-person setting. Case in point, you're trying to get to know your students for the very first time. We all know there's a tech savvy and innovative world that we're in. So you can easily have a QR code on the board. They come in with their cell phones, like most adult learners and other learners. And they can scan the QR code and go directly here to the palette web page, and they'll see all the design and everything that you have created. And the topic of discussion or the question, the icebreaker, will be listed, and they can go right there from their phone and engage not only with themselves and the instructor, but with their peers as well. So collaborative learning at its best. Okay, so Someone said there would be a strawberry because who doesn't love strawberries? I don't know no one that does not love strawberries. Did someone say watermelon? Somebody said peach, smooth taste and consistently good. Okay. Are there any more? Or are you all still thinking? Avocado, because it adds taste and texture. So this particular icebreaker actually kind of, if you think about it, think about what you selected and your personality. So whoever would be a peach, I'm going to assume that you're very laid back and you're very consistent with what you do, and you have good intentions. Okay. The avocado, I'm going to say you kind of, you got different layers to you. You may be feisty with your words. Your taste may be a little awkward with your words. So you can kind of depict a person's personality with those that you're working with. So I thought that this would be a phenomenal. I often use the orange, even though cotton candy grapes are my favorite snack, because I am sweet when I want to be, but I've always been told that I was very direct. So I like to use the term firm and fair, just like an orange. It's a little tough on the outside. And then once you peel those layers and get to know me, you find you get the juicy and the sweetness, the little, taste buds going there, which is very fulfilling. So I thought that would be a wonderful icebreaker to get us started, and feel free to ever use it in the near future, as well as Palette.com as an innovative way to engage your audience.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hill. This was really cool, really fun. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we're going to jump right into the presentation. Today, we're going to be discussing experiential learning. And this is a fantastic topic. It really dapples in to many different ecosystems, including education, psychology, business, sociology. It has its feelers in many different arenas. And so when we think about experiential learning, we really find its footing in development of applying what's happening in the classroom sector to real world learning, the real community events, and how impactful the lectures, the course offerings, the deliverance is within the realm of the ecosystem of the classroom, but also how it drives into the community-like sector. So experiential learning is really a way of how we can support our students in our classroom. How can we make this happen, or how do you make this happen every day? And so when we think about what this actually is, we have to understand that it's learning through experience, but it's also learning through doing. Having the process of putting your experience as an educator, as well as the experience of students, and making sure that there's an equalized connection in terms of how the application of knowledge is applied. And so when you think about this connection, a word that comes to mind is transferable skills. We teach our students so many different things in our classrooms every single day, but applying those skills in the outside real world is important. And so a K-12 motto is getting our students into college and career readiness. In a higher education sector, we're preparing our students for real world jobs, right? Being outside in the real world jobs. And so this philosophy, this model, this theory really is about the direct experience that we're offering for our students, but in a focus of reflection of how we're supporting our students with the development of skills, clarifying their value systems, and also about the deepening inquiry-based scientific word constructions. And we're going to talk more about that moving forward. So what is it in a nutshell? It's really about those rooted experiences, making sure those critical factors are optimized in the classroom sector, but also driving those components. So then the students are able to grasp onto philosophies and make those real world connections. And so we think about these methods, we're hoping that through stimulations, through storytelling, modeling, role playing, all these experiences that we're offering the students in an everyday sector is then transferable into the real world community-like sector. And it's all about those hands-on components. Little history involved here. It's an old school method, goes back to the 1800s, John Dewey, and it evolved over time. Obviously, it had a lot to do with new and upcoming theories, but also technology, infusements of different discipline areas and that cross-discipline approach in education. And so through time, it's really developed. And 1984 was a truly revolutionary period of time where there was a multitude of publishing regarding this experiential theory. And when we look at this, David Klob, we see at this time there was a foundation of learning theory that truly was taking shape. One quote that always comes to mind when I think about this experiential theory is this quote by Benjamin Franklin. Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. And so this is the heart, this is the beat, this is the tone of what experiential theory is in a nutshell. We can teach our students, we can lecture to them, we can teach in a Socratic method, but it's all about that application. Is it enough knowledge to get the students where we want them to go and to be able to apply those skills in a real world sector? This is David Klob, 1939. He really set the stone for many different revolutionary components and cross-discipline at the core. Psychology, education, sociology, infusement of different experimental techniques way before his time. And so he carried over a lot of thought philosophies. And when we think about this, we're all about those abstract components, but also about those intuitive components as well, where we dabble into the scientific involvement in this. So what is this cycle of experiential learning? And is this cycle something that has to go in sequential progression? No, it doesn't. We can have many different offerings and many different stepping stones, but as long as we have a reflective component, as long as we have the ability for students to have those conceptual frameworks, as long as we have concrete developments and active involvement, that is experiential learning. We hope that sequential format takes shape, but it doesn't have to be. We are hoping that our students analyze and grasp concepts, and we're removing that flat lecture-like perspective to a 3D component. And it's all about those nice stepping stones that we're offering our students. What also happens in experiential learning is the facilitation and reflection. Another unique component of this is the evaluation framework. We're not only supporting our students in the classroom, but we want to be able to make sure that what we're teaching them, their knowledge, their applied skills, can then be evaluated so we as educators can help more, better, stronger teachers and professors in the workplace. It's all about developing our skills as well in a partnership. Along with this component, there's also opportunities for preparation, these deep dive moments of time where you're preparing as an educator in the hopes that there's connectivity that takes place. Transferable entities, but a connectivity to the two realms of information. This is a nice visual that you see on the screen. It's called Experiential Learning logo. And to the right-hand side of the screen, you have something that looks like a triangle. And you have three different components in the core. It's read as do, apply, reflect, or reflect, apply, do. It really doesn't matter which one goes first. What matters is the three components are there. It really sets the tone for a logo-like system and getting yourself into this conveying atmosphere, conveying attributes where it optimizes in the area of growth for our students. It dabbles in the area of experience or transferable skills, and also taps into this knowledge banking. So when we think for a moment, the circular functionality of the logo of the screen has highlights of experience, application, generalizing, prioritizing different components. What's going around the logo is something that's very personal to you. It's a very personal experience as an educator. What's in the core function sets the beat of what's happening, right? And that's the logo. That's experiential at the nutshell. But what goes around there is really about that personal optimization of the uniqueness of professors and educators in this field of higher education. So when we think for a moment, in terms of individualization as an educator, in terms of integration as an educator, we think for a moment, how can we optimize students in the best possible scenario? And it's really yielding out of these three components: do, apply, reflect. So I'm going to turn over to Dr. Hill for a moment, and she's going to set us into a little bit of a breakout session. And the theme is definitely learning logos, but Dr. Hill is going to kick it off for us. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, Dr. Hill, and take it away.
Awesome. So yes. So as Dr. Elena said, we already here have a experiential learning logo. She gave you a synopsis of the purpose. Those arrows, the different components can be built at different standpoints. So we are going to think, pair, share what we know as practitioners, and you will be divided up randomly into different groups, breakout room groups. And the goal is for you and your group to come together. You're going to work collaboratively. Okay, you're going to come, if you find some type of image or symbol to reflect your learning logo, you can. You can be as creative as possible, detailed as possible. So you and everyone in the group come in, think about what your logo is going to stand for. Think about the do, the reflect, and the apply counterparts. And so each and every one of us have different things that we can offer and bring to the table when it comes to the learning experience. So what would this look like in your eyes if you had to come together with a group or a committee and build a particular logo for your learning community? So we'll spend about 5 or 10 minutes in those breakout groups, and we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Hill. I'm going to stop sharing this for a moment. And when everyone breaks into the breakout groups, I'll then reshare my screen so everybody can take a look at that. So whenever you're ready, Dr. Hill, I'm ready to go on my end.
All right.
Participants, if you did not receive an invitation to a breakout room, it means that you've been invited to remain in the main room, which is right here. You're exactly where you should be.
May begin.
Okay, if you're in this main room, everyone is now in their respective rooms, so feel free to begin.
Hello.
And by the way, you have Dr. Elena is still here, so she's also here as a resource for you.
Well, hi, everybody. So I think we're talking about ways in which we can come up with a non-linguistic representation of how we might think about student learning, or maybe it's even thinking about our own learning. I heard a little bit about teacher efficacy as well as, students and what we do with students. Does anybody have a preference as to like what point of view they want to think about it through? I see Jim shaking his head. Our new Faculty Senate President, Professor Lipo. Congratulations again. Well, so I guess I would say that in my classroom, when I think about teaching students, I mentioned this earlier, is I always think about the 3 bears. I want something a little too easy, I want something just right, and I want something a little too difficult so that they stretch. I want to stretch every student every day to think through all levels of thinking. And so you can think about that in pre-writing each level of Bloom's taxonomy questions. You could think about that in terms of Costa's levels of questioning. You could look at how you apply that with Webb's depth of knowledge. But I just like to think of it simply. Can I give them a concrete, literal example that they can put their finger on? Can I ask them questions that make them think inferentially and read between the lines and put clues together? And then can I have them get to critical thinking skills of abstract thought where they're making those connections? And I think about that very thoughtfully as I plan my lessons.
But in that first bit, where we're trying to bring in the experience that they already have, trying to draw that out sometimes, I think that's one area where the opportunity is missed often. Not all faculty think about how we can draw out those transferable skills, or to even look further enough. Like, for example, when I teach marketing, I ask students, have they ever marketed anything? And they say no. I said, dating, the job you got, when you came into the school, you had to market yourself. There's all these things that they're already doing. And as we bring that, we're actually bringing the concrete and that reflective into play.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like tapping into prior knowledge is oftentimes something that we may miss. Like, I think that's why it's really important to be intentional and deliberate in your planning. But if you're kind of flying by, yeah, you might miss how do we get prior knowledge, or what previous experiences might you think are like what it is we're learning about. Those meaningful connections are powerful.
And as you said, you talked about something light or easy. I use something fun, because when we're enjoying ourselves, it's not a chore. We'll get into it easier. We'll become part of it faster.
Yeah, I do that too, Jen. Like, when I think about modeling for students, so let's say I want to model a graphic organizer. I can easily model it with something that they know. Like, everybody is familiar with movies or music or TV shows. So I can model it with something that we all can come at with. And then I can say, now let's apply that graphic organizer to the concept in which we are now studying. And then they have to think about it differently. And so I agree that I think that's a great idea, the idea of using humor or ways that make it fun. I think learning should be fun, right?
Yeah. Getting them out of their seats too.
Creating a graphical organizer.
Say that again, Dr. Andrews.
Are we supposed to be creating something or just talking about this? I'm kind of confused about our objective.
Oh yeah, so I think that we do need to come up with a non-linguistic that represents kind of the thought processes that we're talking about.
Okay.
So some sort of symbol, or perhaps even this graphic that they have on the screen is really well designed. It's got a lot of information that it's talking about in its cyclical process. I'm not sure. I know that we've used pictures before just to kind of symbolize what we're talking about. I think something that acts as a symbol would be great to share with the whole group.
I like the idea of something that doesn't go, this is actually linear. So it takes each process in front of the other. And I like to have something that takes it back to the others, because you can go back and gain more without going all the way around at first. And then, like you could go into experience and share and then come back because of what somebody's saying. I don't know. It's just my idea.
Oh no, so I think Dr. Andrews, when I hear you talk about that, it reminds me of like a dance, right? Like we can learn an 8 count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we can repeat it, or we can repeat the 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, back to 2. Then we might go up to, add a little something. It seems to me like it's kind of a dance that you don't, sometimes you have to go forward and backwards before you can go more forward, right?
That's nice. Yeah.
So I think when you described that to me, it sounded like a dance.
What about somebody else? What did it sound like to you? Or do you have something else that you'd like to make our drawing like?
The
Not very
cyclical
participatory, huh?
I was going to say the cyclical, but with arrows that cut out would work.
What about a
can be
dancer in
linear.
the middle?
Yeah. I mean,
And-
you can go between each of them. I mean, it can be cyclical, and it also, you hit the reflective and go back to the prior and then go to the critical, so you can do it in multiple ways.
Well, so like what representation would this group like to utilize? I think I saw a flash that said we only have so much time left. Oh, Dr. Newby, I think you're on mute.
I am. I thought I was talking. I was just saying I agreed with Dr. Lipo that it could be in both ways, right? Like you could have the arrow going both ways. And if you opened it up so that it wasn't solid, that would indicate that it was flowing, or you could have lines going both ways. Because I think that it does go back and forth. It's very much like this. This reminds me very much of the appreciative education model, which is how I teach.
I'm sorry, I want to draw us back to the objective of the event is a non-graphical, right?
I think they want a non-linguistic, right? They do want some sort of picture, right?
Yeah,
Like
they're
it's-
asking for a logo. It says think, pair, share. What will your learning logo reveal? So
I think it was a logo.
I have one that I can share. It's
Great, Jim.
actually from Kolb.
Oh yeah. Yep.
It's
It's very much related to Kolb's theory.
this one.
yeah.
Oh, interesting. I don't think I've seen Kolb looking like that before. I've seen a simplified version of that.
But it has everything that we talked about with
Perfect.
going back and forth.
Perfect. Great job, Jim.
Jim, can you tell us where you got that at? Or do you know right now? Is it-
I Googled specific requirements, and it was visual representation and had the things that we talked about, and this is what came up.
Oh, nice.
But I put the link in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So that you all
Yes,
have
thank
it.
you.
All right, I think we're all back, right? We're all
Yes,
coming back.
yes.
All right,
We are all
awesome.
back.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. And thank you all for playing such a wonderful role in the breakout sessions. It's a meeting of the minds. And I know we only have ever so many minutes in these breakout sessions, but hopefully some value and some takeaways today can then be implemented in the upcoming sessions with your own students. So Dr. Bell's going to work in the room a little bit. We may play a little bit of popcorn, and then I'll jump in as we go through each group. Thanks so much, Dr. Bell.
All right, guys. So the first group that wants to share, just go like popcorn and let's share.
Want to do the main session maybe?
Yes, the main
Okay.
session will go first. That's fine.
So Jim, do you want to share the screen back to the cold model that you found that kind of went through the dance of how it is we go forward and backwards through the process?
So we had, the main ideals of, as we had discussed, but that it could be linear, but that it also could work between, so we bring out that prior knowledge, the things that they can all identify with. Then we bring it into the reflective where they're actually thinking about it, bring it into the critical thinking, and then actually put it into action. But that you can bounce between. You may go from concrete to reflective, back to concrete, then to abstract. So this is a little bit more in depth of Kolb, but we thought it reflected what we were talking about. And I
Thank
did
you.
put it in the chat even as everyone was coming back.
Thank you so much. I really like the infographic diagram. I know we spoke a little bit about transferable skills, and I was sitting in the group just for a moment and overheard some transferable skills. And I think it's really important to have those conversations with our students. And when I think of transferable skills, I also think of hard and soft skills and be able to optimize those developments with our students. They may come into our classroom with other jobs, other lives, other school settings, right? And to be able to understand their journey to get to where they are today with you should be held at a spotlight. And then making sure in that component we're optimizing the ability for them to work as in a team or lead a team or to have organizational skills and critical thinking skills, right? This is much more that can be put on a resume, right? Those soft skills. And we have to be able to optimize those areas to highlight those wonderful attributes of our students, because those are the characteristics along with the degree that's going to sell them in an interview. So I think that's really important when we think about those experiential components, and a wonderful infographic right here hits the nail on the head. Thank you so much, Group 1, for sharing that with us. All right, Dr. Hill, next group.
Yes, next group.
Okay, I guess we were group 1 technically as far as rooms are concerned, so maybe I'll give us a little bit here. We admittedly had a difficulty thinking about something we could use as a symbol. So I think we all agreed I could share the thing that came out to my mind at the tail end. And that was that communications and interchange is what we're trying to do, get people to share experiences on that, which helps them to learn. And so the picture that came to my mind was basically a circle where you would have all of the students around the circle, maybe the instructor at the top, and they would all be reaching into the center and touching hands, indicating a flow of communications back and forth between everybody. And so that was best I could do. And I hope my team will put up with that for me.
I really love that. I think that's wonderful. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking to myself, hitting the components of inter and intrapersonal relations skills. And so that's communications at a nutshell, where we're dabbling into these components and layering those entities with those transferable skills. Going back to the 90s model, there was an education researcher, author named Dr. Charlotte Danielson. And I'm dating myself going back X amount of years. However, she was really revolutionized this component of putting this educational arena into a quadrant-like system where we're spending equalized amount of time in planning or preparation, the instruction. But what came out of those research components is the emphasis on classroom environment. And I know a lot of times we don't have enough time to be able to delegate to our environment of our classroom, right? But the environment just here in our Zoom session is ever so critical to make sure that everyone feels part of the bigger class. And so these breakout sessions really provides opportunities for students to communicate like you just said, and really highlight and target in and hone in the intra and interpersonal relation skills. Thank you so much. Really great piece.
You know that, if I might just piggyback on that for a moment, one of my degrees is in counseling. And I remember when I was getting my training quite some years ago, one of my favorites was a lady who invented what she called single session counseling. And she said, you know, the average person only comes to counseling once. So don't start and spend the whole time regurgitating their history. Ask them what has been working well for you and build on that, because they may never come back. And I think the same thing, what you're emphasizing there in the classroom, each class, we should be trying to impart some knowledge to them, because you can't say, oh, well, over the 5 weeks, they'll get something out of it. You don't know which weeks are going to be there. And so therefore, each week, try to find something that they will take away from it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shepherd. I really appreciate that. I think your feedback with your credentials in counseling, it kind of hits home here because I've been seeing a counselor for about, since 2015. So the interpersonal and intrapersonal skills and connections that you make with that individual when you go into those sessions definitely makes a big part, all the way to the point where I think they tried to assign me a new counselor, and I'm like, no, I need to speak to the head person because I don't want nobody but this particular person. So it definitely does make a big adjustment. There's a big difference. And I think too that your circle with all hands on deck is a wonderful collaborative approach to learning and getting everyone involved and not leaving anyone out of the learning process. So I really appreciate your feedback.
Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome. Last but not least, group. Or did everyone go?
I think we're good. I think it felt quick, right?
That was all the groups?
Possibly. 1, 2, maybe there's one more. I don't know. Does anyone else have to go? We were the last group. Okay.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thank
All
y'all
right,
so
this
much.
was really good. I love the topic. I love the conversation, and it's so important. We try to do everything we can as educators to support our students, and sometimes we are finding ways to be able to connect those layers, right? And experiential learning is a layer system. It's scaffolding. It's making sure there's interwoven connections and finding different mechanisms to be able to support our students. One is providing the opportunity to do role-playing, simulations, design thinking, service learning, case study, outdoor team building. I remember one time years ago, we had to do team building the first week of a course that I took here in New Jersey. And we went on a field trip and we had to climb this huge wall. Everyone had to go a rope and climb this huge wall. And I said to myself, whatever would I gain from this? And what I gained was the ability to foster or to understand group cohesiveness. And that's the beauty of these experiential learning components. Here's some examples of connecting with nature, bringing the students back to their roots and wilderness, go on those virtual field trips, connect them with other students that are embarking on the same journey as them to find a balance or to gain a friend out there. Networking, that's the key to these experiential learning experiences. And when we think about simulations, we also think about STEAM and STEM. These are really optimizing terms in the K-12 sector, but how are they impacting in higher ed? That's the question. When we think about how we're evaluating our students, we're evaluating them through reflective components, by project-based initiative, by portfolios. And so when we're doing this, it's not only formative, we're visually seeing who's connecting in the classroom, because we can't always check the box and make sure that they've tapped on critical thinking and teamwork and stuff like that. We have to make sure that they're communicating and building that group cohesiveness, because networking is a skill that they're going to be able to help support them in the real world. We're also understanding that there's reflective components, there's concept maps, there's student presentations that will all play a role and equalize parts in the real world development. We're hoping that they're gaining a diploma, a degree. We're also hoping that they're getting a job and are able to use the skills, the applied skills in the university outside in the real world, because eventually they may be colleagues, right? They may be standing there next to you, and we're supporting these students and making sure that they have enough education and also enough applied knowledge and skills. We know our students are learning at all different speeds, at all different ways, and some are learning visually, auditory, combination of both. Some are more dominant in one ways or the other, right? And so we hope that our students are gaining our lectures and our talks with them, but we don't know at the rate of what they're gaining. So 30 students in the classroom, I'm delivering a lecture, or even Socratic method, I don't know who's gaining or comprehending what I'm saying. But I do know that if we put our students into classrooms, into workable groups that support them in a holistic function, that the statistic ratios are extremely high. And I'll show you a concept in a moment. We're bridging our students from that concrete experience to application of knowledge. And it's all about the student inquiry basics, making sure that the students develop their own construction and their own meaning of the new terminology and words. It's about the ownership. And we're bringing them over the threshold and hoping that those transferable skills optimize their learning journey. So with increased enhancements, development of practical knowledge, increased motivation, and also improved knowledge retention, we're passing the torch to our students. Us, through our learning and our development, we're igniting a passion with our students and hoping that the passion is a catalyst for them to gain future education and developments. And so look at these statistics. And so these percentages are really extreme. We give students homework. They're working on homework, they're working on reading, and that only constitutes to 1%, one chunk of how they're gaining practical skills. But if we put them in environments that hands-on knowledge and hands-on application of skills, the likelihood that they would retain the information at a greater speed is statistically there. So offering students hands-on skills, hands-on application. I know a lot of questions always come out and say, well, it's on Zoom. How am I supposed to be able to offer them hands-on skill? Put them in a breakout session, make each breakout session analyze a case study, and then bring that case study back into the table. I teach, we learn together. There's so many different models that we can offer and foster our students. And we're going to show you one model as we progress right now. Games, simulations, finding ways to be able to support our students in role-playing techniques. This is not this 1990 model. This has morphed into so many different phenomenons throughout these decades of learning. With education, artificial intelligence has also built out this whole segue. Kahoot is a really critical opportunity for students to get in the mix on virtual realities. SimCity, Center of Cell, these are just some examples that I know I've used in K-12 and higher education. But how can we support our adult learners? That's the question. And we're going to go on a little bit of a scavenger hunt in a moment. So if you want to see explorational learning in action, Dr. Hill and I tried to figure out a way where we can grasp your attention, get our hook in, and to be able to go on a virtual scavenger hunt or field trip all in an hour. So you're going to go on a virtual field trip in a moment, and we'll call it a wild goose chase. And I'm going to turn my turn over to Dr. Hill right now and mute myself right now. And Dr. Hill, you could take us on this virtual goose chase.
Awesome. So once again, the purpose of this phenomenal workshop is to make sure that we were able to not only give you some insight on how to implement these things or give you the background knowledge on it, but so that you can see and apply. So we wanted to model the expectations of what experiential learning in action is. So if you have your cell phone devices, we all are kind of tech savvy, pull out your cell phone devices. You'll have a camera, take your camera, scan the QR code there on the screen. Initially, when you log into this particular platform, you would want to sign up for a free account. You know, all accounts have some type of paid membership. You don't need that for the classroom or professional development session. And so if you scan the QR code, you will see a Goose Hunt link that Dr. Elena and I came up with, something basic just to show you an example of how it can work. So there's a question there that says something about naming a goose or the babies of the goose or something like that. And so it's a Wikipedia link there. You're going to click that link and you're going to have to look through the different tabs on that link to find the answer to the question. And so once you find the answer, you go back to the actual goose question on the very first part of the platform. You select your answer and it will award you points. So this could be a great way for you to take a case study or to try to do some form of informal assessment to get the learners or adult learners engaged. So has anyone clicked on it? Anybody would like to share any takeaways from it?
I'll kick us off a little bit, Dr. Hill. So finding ways for students to become scavengers from a basic textbook and then putting these aspects into action. A scavenger hunt really piqued our interest, right? And we found ways to be able to not only have students develop their comprehension skills or reading skills. As we know, many of our students are coming into our classrooms and still needing to work on comprehension and reading skills and development. And so finding programs like this Wild Goose Chase that tapples into the development of comprehension, learning, auditory, variety of different techniques is really critical. And it goes back to that STEAM and STEM as well. So a Wild Goose Chase, you can develop your own Wild Goose Chase, or there's embedded Goose Chase inside of the program already. And the students can win points too. And so it's not only fun for them to play around with a web link and find different techniques, but it's also really critical because they feel like they're being challenged or they're challenging each other to be able to get those points. All right, Dr. Hill, this was fun. I'm going to stop sharing this for a moment and we're going to move forward. So if you ever would like to go on to this Wild Goose Chase, develop your own account with the company, and it's really fun. It's really fun. So how can you see explorational learning in action? What are ways by which you can infuse this in the classroom and truly find the equalized balance? Well, there is an association of experiential education. The Light Center and CAPRI are wonderful, and so many different techniques and workshops each month. And then going into David Kloeb's book, there's so much knowledge in the book of David Kloeb. And a quote on the screen, you see, learning is a process whereby knowledge is created through the transformation of experience. And that's really where it is in a nutshell. Where are we going in terms of this process, this virtual reality? Well, as you know, artificial intelligence is all around us right now. We're standing in 2023 and making sure that our experience as educators is balanced with not only providing tools for success, but also finding adaptive experiences. So by 2030, integration, immersion, simulation experiences is really where it's going to be at in terms of AI and also the connectivity and experiential learning. So we thank you so much for this time and this experience. And some concluding marks are that we're developing these real world components for our students, but in that as well, they're developing skills for success. And it's our job and our duty to make sure those items are optimized, but also fostering their critical thinking skills. So they land those interviews, so their extensions are then transferable once again. Upcoming sessions will include a Thursday, September 21st, noon Pacific time, and it's a lunch and learn series. So I'm going to turn this back over to Dr. Hill, and then we'll wrap up the session.